So we are in a series where we are talking about the life that Jesus has for us and leading us into real life, setting us free from the things that hold us back. And a big part of this is learning from Jesus' habits, learning how he actually lived life. And today we're going to talk about really the living part, engaging in doing. And when I thought about this message, I really thought about this message to the seniors, but it ends up being something to all of us. And they're getting a little bit of the experience, at least the majority of them, of what it's like to say the same thing 3 times in a row. And but it is a joy to be able to see the opportunity that's before them to launch off. And I wanted to give them a word of encouragement. But you see, we all have choices to make. And those choices are before us today. And I want us to choose what Jesus is calling us to. Now, the way into this, I want us to think a little bit. If you were to choose a logo that represented your life, what logo would you choose? Now, to get you maybe even thinking a little bit, we will do a little bit of a quiz. I'm going to put some different logos up and see if you can name them, and then what they represent. And so here's the first one. Disney. Happiest place on earth. So what does it mean, happiness? What is that idea? What are they really trying to give you? How about this? Pleasure, happiness. I want to feel good. Next one. Apple. Okay. What does it mean? Technology. What? I heard power. Somebody else said what? Innovation. You know, one of the things that they try to tell you is that it's intelligence at your fingertips. They're selling you being smart, knowledge. Here's another one. You know, we live in the Pacific Northwest. I will tell you, in the last service, this is the one where more people are willing to put it out right away. Starbucks! I mean, it's just like, whoa. So those coffee cups go a long ways. What does this logo mean? Affordable luxury. Right, what's that? Pleasure, another pleasure. So you know that it's a mermaid or a siren, right? So how about this? Desire. In fact, it wants to create a desire in you. It wants to make you be a coffee addict so that you will buy more coffee. The next one. Okay, so, but it's, what is it first? It's Mercedes. Okay, so I hear luxury. Now, this one is interesting because they are trying to give you a meaning in this. It's very intentional for them about this symbol. Power. Status. It comes across, but really the symbol, what they're trying to say, is it represents that they have dominance over land, air, and sea. It represents power. What would be a logo for you? All 4 of these logos are world famous. People all over the world see them, recognize them, have some sense that they're signifying something. But none of them are the most famous logo. The most famous logo has been around for centuries. It is from cathedrals to charm bracelets, from T-shirts to tombstones, and it is right there. The cross is the single most famous logo the world has ever seen. It has been around so long that it is often forgotten what it actually originally represented. A lady walks into a jewelry store and she asks if she can see a necklace with a cross on it, and the jeweler looks at her and says, "Well, do you want the kind that's empty or with the little man on it?" Originally, they always had little men on them or women. It is actually one of the most, it is the most successful rebranding of a symbol ever done. Ben, when he came up, he shared with you a little bit from Revelation. And Revelation is one of the powerful places that this rebranding takes place, because you have this picture of triumph, power, and then you look, and then it's the Lamb of God who was slain. Perfected, it was made by the Persians, it was perfected by the Romans. It became the symbol of empire dominance. If you don't go with the empire, this is what will happen to you. It is painful, it is suffering, it is humiliating. The cross wasn't empty. Now Jesus comes and he starts a movement and he says, "Who would ever come after me must deny themselves, take up their crosses and follow me." And this was his invitation to discipleship. Jesus chose this image to represent his movement. It's astounding. Okay, so there's going to be this little fledgling movement, and the goal of the movement is to create a worldwide movement that will end up being the means by which the whole world gets saved. And Jesus is commissioning us, and they took it, and they made this their symbol in the midst of persecution when they were trying to attack people. And universally, this symbol meant that Rome wins, you lose if you go against them. It was not an icon of desire, knowledge, power, or pleasure. They chose a symbol that universally represented defeat, powerlessness, and suffering. To choose this symbol was seen as the height of folly. I have a picture for you. This comes from about 200 AD. It was found in Rome. It's early graffiti mocking a Christian worshiping their God. It says, Alexamenos worships his God. And there is a donkey on the head of his god that he's worshiping. This icon, people looked at it, they ridiculed, they thought this was foolish. But when Jesus invited us to follow him, to take up our cross, he was not calling us to annihilation. I want to put forward to you that he's calling us to life. Life worth living for. Life worth dying for, even life that's going to ultimately be worth resurrecting for. You see, our story is that God was reconciling all things to himself through what Jesus did on the cross. All evil, all sin, all death, all guilt. They were about to receive their eviction notice. This creation, this place, you're on your way out. Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. I'm going to show you how to live. It's a little astounding. Listen to one of the great summaries of the Christian life. It is for freedom that Christ has set you free. There are two great aspects of freedom. One aspect, and we'll look at this next week, is freedom from. It's where the chains get broken and the things that are binding us back. And often, this is the part where there are certain addictions that are chaining us back. And we need to be set free from certain things. But the second part of freedom, and I would argue that this is the more important part, is freedom for. To be what you were made for. To find your purpose, to know that there is a God who's created you and he has plans for you and he wants you to become all that you can be. There is a difference between existing and living. And freedom for is about getting us into the living where we become that which what we were made for, to reach your potential. there's a wonderful rhythm. We talked about it a couple weeks ago where we said, okay, so one part of life is rest. And we were made for Sabbath. We were made for rest. Now, there's a rhythm to this, though. 6 days of working and then a day of rest. There is a place for peace. There is a place for rest. There is a place to enjoy. But in the Christian life, there is also a place to do, to live, to do what you came to do. God has a purpose for you. Now, we're talking about habits, the way that Jesus lived. Jesus observed the Sabbath, but he lived an active life. He did things. He healed, he served, he fed, he gave, he taught, he forgave. And I could spend a whole bunch of time looking at some of the specific things Jesus did over and over and over. He worshiped God. He regularly threw parties and he got together with people. And all of these would be activities to do. And there is a place, if you're going to learn how to live and you're going to live Jesus' life, you're going to engage with living by doing things. And in those doings, we find freedom. It's freedom for, not merely existing, but finally living. Now, I could give you a list of some ideas of the ways that you could engage in life and some of the habits that Jesus did. But today, being mindful of both the fact that there were seniors, and they heard it in the first service, and I was speaking to them, but to all of us, instead, what I want to do, instead of giving you some ideas about habits of doing, I want to speak to you and really challenge you to go and to do. And when I say to go and to do and to live, what I want to say to you is this: find your challenge. God has a call on your life, and he wants you to go and to live for him. You and I have something worth living for. We have something worth dying for. We have something that is worth resurrecting for. Something more than success, smarts, pleasure, or power. The cross was not empty. There was a man on it, and he was making a way for all things to be reconciled to God. And he is now saying, you and I, we have a part to play in this movement. It is the salvation of this cosmos, and the center and focus is the saving of many lives, many souls, the people around us. We grow up in a society that says aim for success, and that means getting so rich that you can take life easy. That is the pathway to boredom and death. We were made to bring order out of chaos, to overcome challenges. Don't ask for comfort. Don't ask for ease. Don't ask for something that you can manage on your own. Ask for a challenge bigger than yourself. Ask for a challenge where you can make a difference in this world. One that will push you, require you to sweat, calls the very best out of you, pushes you towards God, gets you on your knees. You know that you can't do it by yourself. A task that keeps you learning, growing, uncomfortable, and hungry. Jesus is inviting us into adventure. Not safety, but risk. Pick up your cross and make devils tremble. Choose a challenge, the challenge that God is setting before you. And then there's this. Ignore the naysayers. There are going to be people that if you actually step into God's mission for your life, they're going to sit there and they're going to give you words of doubt. Who are you? What do you possibly think? Look at your life. It is a hard thing to feel that, and then when you start to believe it. The first time I moved was when I was 12 years old. It was the summer between elementary school and middle school. One of the more difficult things that happened in my life. I went from being stable, secure in the same place, knowing everybody in my school, having all of these friends, having never moved before, and then my parents picked up and we moved, and it was right at the beginning of middle school, and I didn't know one person. And that was tough, and then it was tough because it was like the pudgy phase of my childhood, and then you're in 7th grade, and my first class of the day is gym, and there's like 9th graders in the locker room, and they pick on all the 7th graders, and it's just like, and And that was a year of loneliness, and it was a year of, figuring out how to make new friends, but, feeling and often experiencing rejection. It is hard when there are voices that say, you don't matter, you're not important, we don't want you. I have a friend, and he actually had the experience where his dad told him, you're never going to make anything of yourself. And that shaped his whole life. And he was always fighting that demon, that voice that said, no matter what, you're really nothing. There are always going to be critics. There are always going to be naysayers. But what I'm calling you to do is listen to the only voice that matters, and that is the voice of Jesus Christ. He has a call on your life. Listen to what he says about you. I love these words. They come from 1 John. See what great love the Father has lavished on us that we should be called children of God. And that is who we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not yet been made known. Jesus is going to call you. He's going to call you to make a difference in this world. He's going to give you a God-sized challenge that you can't do on your own. And there are going to be people, and they're going to sit there, and they're going to say, you? What are you thinking? You can't do something like that. What you are has not yet been fully revealed. You are more than you know because Jesus is with you and he is for you. Don't listen to the voices of the naysayers. Listen to the voice of Jesus Christ. Because we know that when Christ appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. All who have this hope in him purify themselves just as he is pure. So, I asked Richie in the first service, I said, did you know that the quote that you made about what you've really learned and what you would say in 15 seconds, that was Teddy Roosevelt? And he said, yeah. Ernie's sitting there going, he did? He knew that? Yeah, he did. You're welcome. Let me give you another quote from Teddy Roosevelt. Don't listen to naysayers. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Don't listen to the naysayers. Listen to the only voice that matters. I want to invite you to stand. There are voices of doubt, and there are voices that speak against us, and some of those voices, sadly, we have a past, and some of us have had the dad or the mom who, instead of giving us words of encouragement, says, you'll never amount to a hill of beans. And some of us are surrounded by that, and some of us have that voice that speaks in the back of our mind, and we are afraid of stepping forward because we're afraid that we will fail. So here's what I want to do. I want you to listen to the only voice that matters. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and to hold out your hands. And I want you to hear words that Jesus speaks over us. Receive these words as a gift. May these be the words that are the truth, that mark your life, that fill your heart, that form your mind. Jesus says, I am yours and you are mine. I have made you with an everlasting love. I've anointed you with power. My Spirit dwells inside you. I call you by name. I am with you. I am for you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. I have a purpose for you. The world does not see what I see. How can they? Trust me. I want to do marvelous things in and through you. Trust me. Ask me. I will answer you. I will bless you. I will lead you. I will move mountains. I will go before you. More than you can ask or imagine. I am the God of the impossible. You will be astounded by my work in you and through you. You are my beloved. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Amen. I invite you to sit. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this up really quick. I'm going to just summarize the story, but I love this story. So I ask for a challenge, ignore the naysayers, and when it comes to a challenge, ask for the hill country. This is a great story. It comes from Joshua chapter 14. And the background of this is that when the Israelites, when they first got out of Egypt, they sent 12 scouts into the promised land to look at things. 10 came back, and they said, let's go back. Let's go back to slavery. I mean, there's giants over there. We were like grasshoppers. We don't want to deal with that. This is a bad idea. Let's go back to slavery. There were 2, Joshua and Caleb, and they were like, what? We got this. This is no problem. God's with us. This is going to be great. Those were the only 2 who were told that they will actually get to enter into the promised land. The Israelites then spent the next 40 years wandering around the wilderness. Now, at the time when this happened, Caleb was 40 years old. Move forward, and we get into the book of Joshua, and the conquest begins. 5 years into the conquest, Caleb is 85 years old. They're finally at the place where they're putting out the allotments of who's going to get what areas of land of the promised land. Caleb comes forward to Joshua. This is awesome. He comes forward, and he says, I'm as strong as I was when I first came when I was 40 years old. He's 85. I'm strong as I was then. I want the hill country. The hill country is the tough stuff. It's the most difficult part to possess. He says, go give me that. I want to take that on. I want to do something that's hard. I want to do something with God. There's these great words. God blessed Caleb, gave him that hill country, because he followed the Lord wholeheartedly. The words I want to give you is live for God. Live for Jesus. Take the challenge. Don't go the easy way. Ignore what the naysayers have to say. And when it comes down to it, ask for something you know that is bigger, where you know it's going to be God, and it's going to be tough because it's going to call the very best out of you. What's going to be the logo for your life? What is your life going to say?